DIY paint is one of the most unique paints in the world. With just 9 ingredients, you can water it way down and get gorgeous effects like this. Or you can simply pour it out onto a plate, let it sit halfway up, and get beautiful textured effects like this. DIY paint is mistake-proof. We are going to give you some quick and easy tips to help you get beautiful results, whether you are very experienced or brand new to painting. I have been painting with DIY paint for years, and I know how special and unique it is, but I wanted to see how it would compare to the 2 other leading brands in the industry. So I got out this dresser, and I decided to give DIY paint a literal taste test. I'm going to start with this one because it's only 9 ingredients. I know it's not going to kill me. Because DIY paint is just 9 non-toxic ingredients, it doesn't have any fillers, any chemicals, or plastics. It is essentially all pigments and clay. It is 5 times more pigmented than any other paint, which makes it ideal for blending. Because of the heavy pigmentation, you can water the paint down 10-to-1 and still get beautiful coverage and saturation. When I tried to water down the other brands, they would start to separate and fall apart. You can also create a brand new color right on your surface by blending 2 colors together. I found that the other brands would blend softly together, but it was very hard to create a new color on the surface of the furniture. The first thing that I notice is that it's thick. It doesn't separate. I wonder which brand this is. Oh, I don't even know what's in there. I'm gonna start with this one. I know it's not gonna kill me. Probably gonna taste like dirt. Yeah, how bad can it be? Oh, totally fine. What's going on?
Bread!
Oh, you mean that bread is like paint?
Yes!
We are using the bread analogy to demonstrate that all paint formulas are very different depending on their ingredients. All paint formulas do have their place, and this is not an attempt to knock another brand. This is simply to demonstrate how the DIY paint clay formula is very unique and can do things that other formulas cannot do. Here we are demonstrating a side-by-side comparison, creating texture with the other brands. With DIY paint, because it's made mostly of clay, all you need to do is let it set up and it starts to turn back into clay. It is primarily clay and pigments. Other brands have a lot of latex or rubber in them or even plastic, so they get stretchy when they dry out. You don't need to add a texture medium to DIY paint if you don't want to. It will create this beautiful texture all on its own. And because it's made primarily of clay, it dries very hard. It's long lasting. If you think of an adobe house or an adobe brick from the 1800s, our clay, after it cures, will adhere like no other paint. Because DIY paint is made primarily of pigments and clay, when it dries completely, it turns back into clay. Here we are demonstrating how you can pulverize it, add water to it, and turn it right back into paint. This is possible because of its pure and simple ingredients. But what is in DIY paint? We put all of our ingredients right on the can. It is very hard to find another paint brand that will do this, likely because there are hundreds of ingredients in your average paint formula. Our ingredients are the cleanest that you can find, and our standards are higher than what the government requires for the cosmetic industry. We took one of the other leading brands that is labeled no VOC and we put it to the same test. You can see the difference in the way that it dries. It's rubbery and stretchy. This is because of the plastics and the fillers added to the paint. And when we tried to pulverize it, we could not get the pigments to blend back into the water. Just because a brand is labeled no VOC does not mean that it is without chemicals or fillers. You really need to test it for yourself. One of the awesome things about DIY paint is when you open the lid, it smells like dirt. That's because of all the clay in it and the simple ingredients. There is a very strong contrast between the way DIY paint smells and other brands. One of the most unique things about DIY paint is it has a very long open time. This means you can paint, let it dry, come back weeks later and wet distress without using sandpaper. Wet distressing is less work, less mess, and more organic to how vintage furniture wears over time. We took the 3 drawers, painted each one using DIY paint and the other 2 leading brands. We let them dry for 48 hours and compared how easily they wet distressed. We could get one of the brands to wet distress a little bit, but we had to use a lot more pressure. The other brand did not wet distress. We applied a lot of pressure and we could barely get any paint off the drawer. The other major difference is that DIY paint dries lighter and then dramatically deepens with a top coat. Most paint brands will dry darker and not change at all when you apply a top coat. You can see here DIY paint on the left and the other leading brand on the right. See that DIY paint has the most variation. That is the drawer on the bottom. The 2 competitors are in the middle and on the top. We're going to paint over the whole thing now. Now that we've shown you the difference, we want to paint this entire dresser. We have a full tutorial sharing how easy it is to get beautiful results like this using just DIY paint. We go step by step with blending, texture, wet distressing, and top coats. Oh, and we put DIY paint along with the other brands in the freezer. To see the results, subscribe. The next video is coming up soon. To find DIY paint in your area or to sell it in your store, click the link below. Thanks for watching.